Hello and welcome to a new episode of LeadlapTV International here on that YouTube channel. And today with us, the youngest driver in NASCAR Whelen Euro Series history, Leonardo Colavita, who joined the series in 2021 with Vict Motorsport. Hello, Leonardo. How are you doing?
Hi, good. Thank you for having me.
All right. Let's do first things first. The most important question: what are your plans for the 2022 season?
Well, the plan is just to, for now, to run EuroNASCAR 2 and really go forward in the championship. I think last year was a big foundation year, and we were able to get the right steps going for 2022. I mean, we always kind of planned it to be just learning the car. In fact, I ran pro and two classes um, just for that to get more mileage. But I think we're, especially with some more testing before the start of the season, going to be in a really good, strong place for next season.
You were there um, starting in the club challenge, and then you were stepping up to the two and pro, and then we had this big headline: new youngest driver in the series, and you were quite successful. But I think you came out of nowhere for a lot of NASCAR Whelen Euro Series fans. So introduce yourself. What are you doing? Where are you living? Where are you coming from? Is your racing background? So, and why have you chosen EuroNASCAR?
Well, I started racing actually pretty recently. I started in 2018 in go-karts regionally in New York. So I was actually born in Italy and I'm Italian, but I moved to New York for parents' jobs and various reasons. And I've lived there until this year. And there I raced regionally and nationally. And I did some national racing as well in Europe, predominantly in Italy. And then I wanted to test cars because I met Titi Veneziani, who's my manager and the owner of Vict Motorsport. And through him, I met him actually through karting. And he had initially showed me the EuroNASCAR cars, and I was like, I don't know, I want to try Formula cars. But then he told me just test both of them, and we'll see how that goes. And when we tried both of them out, the NASCAR was just so much fun that I was just like, you know what? Yes, I want to try this. But then they changed the rules slightly to where before the rule was you had to be in your 16th year. So it was after your 15th birthday. And then they switched it to you have to be 16. So I was going to start at the beginning of the 2021 season, but that just wasn't possible. So we did a little bit of testing and together with my family, we made the pretty tough decision to that I would have to move to Milan because I have to be here in order to be competitive, to do testing and really get the full experience. But so far, it's been amazing.
So you've been living in the U.S. in New York City. We had already a race car driver from New York or Chicago, and he lived in New York, André in the series. Um, in New York, is NASCAR a big thing? We know that in the US, NASCAR is the most popular motorsport series, but how is it in New York? How did you experience NASCAR over there?
Well, actually, Andre was a friend of a bunch of karting friends of mine, which was funny because when I was telling them about the series, they all knew about it through Andre. But New York, I don't think is NASCAR's strongest point. I think the Northeast and stuff is kind of a weaker area. But definitely once you leave Manhattan and you go into like the higher part of New York State and the more rural part of New York, it's actually pretty popular. And I know a lot of oval tracks even up there, and especially the presence of a track like Watkins Glen, where NASCAR's been so popular and so consistent over the years. Um, really has started to grow its fan base. But I did some racing in go-karts in North Carolina, and there, I mean, it's NASCAR world. Like we were down there, and while you were driving to the track, you would drive by IndyCar teams, you would drive by Joe Gibbs, you would drive by Hendrick, you got these huge teams with amazing facilities. So you really saw the extent to how big NASCAR is down there because you would see NASCAR flags outside of people's houses, or you'd see a Joey Logano flag or a Kyle Busch flag or whatever, just everywhere. And NASCAR's reach there is really amazing.
So you've chosen the European way of NASCAR racing. So we don't have any ovals. We are on the road courses, but road courses are getting more important in the NASCAR US world as well, with the increase of road courses in the calendar. So what are your goals for the future in NASCAR racing?
Well, actually, recently I was lucky enough to meet with the Gibbs family and meet with Joe Gibbs himself. And we kind of talked about it because NASCAR is going in this direction of road courses that I think is amazing. Um, but my idea for a career is to race GT cars in Europe. But definitely one of the goals for my career would be to sort of cherry pick some races in the Cup Series and for now Xfinity cars. Um, in a couple years because I think there's some other age regulations around that. Um, but just cherry pick some of the road course races because there's nothing I think as technical in GT racing as racing a stock car on a road course because you don't have any help at all. So it's really fascinating to drive.
I've talked to Austin Cindric right after he won the NASCAR Xfinity Series title, and we talked about the next gen car. And Austin is also a race car driver who has experience in both worlds, driving the traditional stock cars, but also GT3 cars. And he said the next gen car is a step towards GT racing. So, is this in your favor that the next gen car is more like a GT car more than a traditional stock car?
Probably, yeah. Um, I think it would benefit those who want to do a GT career and then maybe try some racing in NASCAR. I think the gap won't be as wide. But it also does make the car easier to drive, which always tightens up the field, as we've seen in so many different categories over the years when they introduce ABS, traction control, the field does tend to get tighter. Um, but at the same time, a lot of American drivers don't have a lot of experience on road courses. So making it an even trickier car to drive might have benefited those who have more experience so they could handle it better. But I mean, it's so many hypotheticals, but I think overall, yeah, it will benefit those who do GTs.
Okay, let's go back to Europe and your next season. You're going to be back in the EuroNASCAR. What are the areas you want to improve, and what are your really detailed goals at the beginning of the season, throughout the season, at the end? So, where you're going to work at, and what do you want to accomplish?
Well, overall, I feel like we we had a pretty strong entry into the series, but I was lacking a little bit of one lap pace from like just confidence in the car, especially in the release of the brakes. That was mainly my issue. And with these cars, it's so crucial to roll speed through a corner that it was really essential to work on that. And also physically, like my fitness needs to get better because these cars really do take it out of you when you drive them. And I mean, I'm going into the season with an open mind. I'm not sure of who I'm racing against, what that whole scenario is going to be. But I just try to focus on myself and try to be better than I was the race before. And hopefully, I mean, my goal for race one and race two in Hockenheim is to be on the podium, of course. And if we can get something more than that, well, even
Perfect.
better.
So it's going to be the 9 car again with Vic Motorsport?
Yeah. There's I think some interesting stuff that will maybe come out soon. But other than that, yeah, it's going to be the 9 car with Vic Motorsport. Definitely, the team has been so good over the past 3 races that I wouldn't change it for anything.
Perfect. So when there's new stuff coming up, I hope we meet again so we can talk about that. I'm very interested in those things. So if there's something changing, something developing, just let me know. And thanks for joining us here today.
Of course, thanks for having me.
All right. So if you guys out there like the video, please hit the like button. If you don't want to miss any video on this channel, please hit the subscribe button. And if you have any ideas for future videos, let us know in the comments. And yeah, with that said, thank you so much for joining us here on LeadLab TV. All the news about the series are available on LeadlapTV in German and on leadlab.net in English language. Thank you so much. Goodbye.